Hello, my name's Shay, and welcome to another episode of Shay Develops. This is going to be the first video we make on loops, and we're going to be talking about while loops and the do while loop. And now there's not much of a difference between the two, but we will go over the difference whenever we get to that part in the video. So let's go ahead and create a loop. So if you're familiar and you watch my if-else statement, you'll notice some similarities between that and the while loop, but just very minor ones. So the first thing we're going to do is create a boolean, and we'll say is it running, and we'll say true. And then we're going to create an int value I equals 0, and I is going to be our counter. We're going to write a couple different while loops, and I'll show you, like I said, exactly how these work and how you can set them up. So let's go ahead and start. We have a while, and then with some curly braces. Now in this parentheses, we need to put in some kind of an expression that evaluates to true or false. So you could just put in true, and this will run forever. Right, let's go ahead and show it. I'll show you that right now. Let it build for a second. And boom. It's just going to go and go and go and go. Alright, but let's stop that because I don't want it to go and go and go anymore. Alright, so like you can see here, this takes a Boolean expression. So we could do I equals 0, which will also mean that'll run forever and ever and ever, unless we use our counter and implement I, or well, as we're iterating through this this while loop, one of our each iteration will add 1 to our I variable. So as soon as it gets out, it's only going to run one time, and then it's going to add 1 to 0, and then it's going to test again while I equals 0, and then I is not going to equal 0, so therefore it will only run that one time. So we can go ahead and show you that, and boom, this actually will not run forever and only runs one time. And then we can actually output what I would be. Go ahead and make that do that first, and this is I. We'll go ahead and run that again. We got I is 1. So let's say I is less than 10. I is going to run. So as this iterates through the loops, it's going to go one time, and it's going to, since I is 0 at the start, and then 0 is less than 10, it will make sure it runs this loop at least one time. And then if I is still 0 until we add 1 to it, and then it's going to output what we want it to. And then at the end of it, since it gets back to this curly brace, it's going to go back up here to the while loop, and now I is 1. And now I is still less than 10, so it's going to run it again. And now I will be 2, and it says system, this is I will be 2. And it's going to go until I becomes 10, and once I is 10, it will skip over this and go, and we'll output end of while loop. So you'll see this count from 0, well, actually from 1 to 10, because we add 1 before we output it. But if we were to put this after, it would be from 0 to 9. See how that changed it just a little bit down here? Really, so like I said, that is one way, is by using a variable and testing if that variable is equal to another. As long as the expression that you're doing outputs a Boolean, which is just a true or false, then this while loop will be good. So if I said like while I or something like that, it's gonna give me invalid, or while just some number, can't do that. But I could give it while running, and then we could do if I is less than or equal, actually let's do greater than or equal to 0. We'll do I plus plus. We will just output the value of I right there, and then do else. We will set running equal to false. Now this actually won't work. That's going to fail. Well, it won't fail, but it's going to run forever because I is always going to be greater than or equal to 0. So let's do I is greater than or equal to 0 and I is less than 10. So what's going to happen is this counter right here, this is going to run forever unless we put running to false, which is the eventual goal. So this if statement is going to check as soon as we get into the while loop. It's going to check, be like, hey, is I greater than or equal to 0, which in our case it is, but it says and is I is less than to 10, which also it is. So if we, like we talked about in the if else statements, this double and sign, double ampersand sign means and that means both this expression and this expression must evaluate to true in order for us to continue with this, continue with running the code within this if statement. Otherwise, it's going to bypass that and it's going to run this code in the else statement, set running to false, and then end of while loop. So let's go ahead and run this, see what happens. And as you can see, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then end of while loop. Make that a little bigger. Alright, so that's basically it for a while loop. We could do a lot more. If you've watched my switch statement, we could do a switch where we get some kind of value and we test it against a bunch of cases, and in each one of those cases could do something, or it could quit out of the while loop by setting running equal to false, something like that. But there's a different kind of while loop. It's called a do while loop, and we're gonna write that up here on the screen here in just a second. But let me go over what the difference is. Now this while loop has to test if running is equal to true. So if we set it to false, it will never get into this code block and run it. I'll show you that now. It's going to go end of while loop, and that's it. Boom. See, look at that. End of while loop. Doesn't go any further than that. But with a do while loop, it's automatically going to run whatever's in the code block at least one time, and then check. Well, it'll run it one time, no more, but then it'll check the while condition to see if it's going to continue to keep running that code within the code block. So let's go ahead and comment this out. And do end of do while. So it starts out with the word do, and then some curly braces, and then while. So while running, we'll use that again, and we can say output. This is the start of the do while. And let's go ahead and use a switch statement of I. And we'll do case 0. It doesn't really matter what we put here. Case 0. Alright, and then we need to break out of this. So if you haven't seen my video on switch statements and this is new to you, go ahead and take a step back, watch that video. It's real quick, and it'll show you how to use these switch statements and while they're helpful. Basically, it's kind of like this if-else statements above, but just in different syntax, and instead of, and it runs a little bit differently. Right, so you can see that in the other video. All right, so let's go ahead and case 1. And we actually could just do, well, let's not do that, otherwise it'll give us a, not an error, but a warning. And then let's see, once it gets to case 3, ending do while loop. And then we will break. And then we'll have a default. Sorry, typing's kind of bad today. Ran into a problem. And then we also need to set running equal to false. So we make sure we break out of this statement. All right. So like I said, it's going to run the do, this do while. It's going to run whatever's in this code block right here. It's going to run it one time. Then we need to make sure we add I to our counter. Let's do it at the bottom actually, after the switch. And actually we're going to break out of the loop. Each time we use this break keyword, it's going to go right back up to the do. And actually it's going to go to here, this while, see if it needs to run it again, and then run it again. So here we just need to make sure we're counting. And then it'll start at 0. So it'll run this, add 1, it'll run this, and this actually needs to be 2 rather than 3. And then it'll go from 0 to 1 to 2. From 2, it's going to break. So you're going to see it right, case 0, case 1, ending the do while, and then end of do while loop. Let's see if that happens. It might not. I might have messed it up. And actually messed it up a little bit. So I is 0. And then we do this. We're going to run it one time. So what's going to happen is it says this is the start of the do while, which we get right here. And then since I is 0, case I equals 0, it goes outputs that case 0, adds 1 to I, breaks out, and then says, hey, while running is still true, which actually running is false, and that's why it messed up. So if we set this to true, it is now going to run multiple times. So that was actually good. You can actually see it, make sure that it ran one time, and then because running was false, it ended the loop. No more, right? So let's go ahead and run this again. There we go. It says this is the start of the do while, case 0, and then it started back over again. So it prints out again. This is the start of the do while, case 1, breaks out, checks if running is still true. Running is still true. This is the start of the do while, and then since now I is 2 and we passed the I value here in the switch statement, it goes, I equals 2, that's case 2, ending the do while, set running to false, running's false, end of the while loop. And that's basically it for whiles and do whiles in the loops. I've got another video coming on for loops, which are a little more complicated, but really they're still fairly easy to use. They're just one of those super easy to use, incredibly difficult to master all the ways that you could possibly use a for loop. But hopefully you guys will go back and watch the other videos. Like I said, if any of this is new to you, I've made videos on all this stuff already, including booleans, integers, if statements, switch statements, all that kind of stuff. And I've got more videos coming, all primarily on Java. Yeah, and that's it. So if you guys though want to help me out, I would be super thankful if you leave me a comment about, you know, some problems you're having, how I can help you out in the development world, something that you'd like to learn about, or just something I could do better. That's awesome too, because I'm trying to make these videos to help people, and you know, to help myself as well by learning this even more in depth than what I've already taken the time to do, and then by teaching that to other people. Alright, but other than that though, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification icon. I've got more videos coming out. And if you're interested in web development, I have a book that I've written on HTML5 Learning and Reference Guide that talks and goes over all the different elements, attributes and values and stuff like that in the HTML5 language. You can pick that up on Amazon. I've got a link to it in the description. It's $2.99, and it helps me, and that stuff will go a long way. Anyway, so I hope you guys have a great day. We got lots of videos coming soon, so stick around. Peace.